The people that were close to Steve knew he was always happy, happy, happy. Always wanted to make other people laugh.
They didn't dress like everybody else. They didn't have education like other people. The Avery family didn't fit into the community.
Stevie did do a lot of stupid things, but he always owned up to everything he did wrong.
I think I had a good life till all the trouble started.
That a clip from Making a Murderer. It's a Netflix documentary that everybody's talking about. It follows the case of Stephen Avery, Wisconsin man who served 18 years for a rape he didn't commit, then got charged with murder after he got out. Now the case putting the spotlight on the role of, among other things, money in the system, and certainly adequate defense or not. Avery didn't have a lot of cash, and folks without it typically do have tougher times. Jim, we've talked about this quite a bit. I know you followed, this case here. For folks who haven't watched the series, there's a lot of moving parts. But I'm curious, watching it through the eyes of a former prosecutor and a defense attorney now, were you shocked that this happens? You say this happens more than you people realize. Or did something in particular stand out about this particular case that even you, as jaded as you may be, had your jaw dropped?
Well, we all know it happens a lot more than we used to realize because it's happening all the time, as we know from the last couple of years. But I will tell you this. This was our system at its absolute worst in every way possible. You had lawyers for the prosecution and defense having press conferences every day after the testimony, discussing the testimony and doing mini closing arguments on the testimony. You had a former police department that was being sued for $36 million, and so a special prosecutor was assigned, and the old department was told, you just can't be there. You can support, but you can't be there. The other county was told, whenever they're around, supervise them, and they can never be left alone. That went to nothing. One of the lieutenants who was specifically sued by Avery is, after 10 searches of his bedroom, is left alone in the bedroom, and voila, here's the key to the woman's car with his DNA on it. It was horrible. But in terms of money, you look at the comparison. Avery settled his case for a mere $400,000, but in Wisconsin, that's a lot of money. And I will tell you, he got a good defense. They shouldn't have been talking the way they were, but he got a good defense from the two lawyers representing him. His cousin, who was clearly mentally and emotionally challenged, and from whom a confession, I will tell you, I don't know that anybody can disagree, was coerced, had the most deplorable representation I have ever seen. A lawyer who basically told him he was guilty, told him he couldn't help him unless he said he was guilty and sorry, sent an investigator essentially to coerce yet another confession from him so he could hand him up to the prosecution, and then basically in the press every night protested his client's guilt as opposed to innocence. It was stunning. I don't know if Avery is guilty or not, but what I can tell you is it was the most unfair, disgraceful proceeding I have ever seen from beginning to end.
And you had other law enforcement telling the prosecutors or the arresting folks you got the wrong guy. So it wasn't like there was reasonable doubt, right?
Well, and everybody gets so mad. How can you accuse officers of framing? I'm sorry. These officers arrested him for a rape 18 years ago. Another county calls them and says, you got the wrong guy. Goodbye, thank you. 8 years later, while the man is serving a huge sentence, they get another call saying, you have the wrong guy, and they ignore it. And then finally, DNA testing proves not only that Avery didn't do it, but the very guy they were telling the police did it was the one who was ultimately responsible. And it's these very police that played an integral role in all of the evidence that pointed to this guy. The key, the blood in the truck. If that evidence was there, let it have been discovered by the special prosecutor and the other county, because how many times have we had on this show a discussion about a special prosecutor?
Yep.
When there's a conflict, get somebody independent.
And there were so many inherent conflicts in this case. But finally, Jimmy, listen, we all want to believe the scales of justice and everything else, but there's a difference when an attorney representing a defendant, forget about it, is a good attorney versus a bad attorney, but has resources at their disposal, versus one who's got to, look at the back of the manila envelope to remember the client's name. And if anything, this proves it, right?
It, at least certainly for the cousin, it proves it. And let me just say this. There are so many public defenders out there that are amazing attorneys, and they care deeply, and they do a great job, caveat, with what they have. If you don't have the resources to really investigate a case, to follow every lead, which public service agencies simply don't have, and quite frankly, most people in the public don't have when they hire a private lawyer, you are at a significant disadvantage when you are up against the government who can triple and quadruple team you and has investigators on call that can go out and investigate everything.
And if your attorney almost seems like he's working for the other side, that makes it even that much harder.
Clearly.
Amazing.
But money does play a role.
Listen, I suggest you folks find a way, watch the series. It's compelling. Making my way through it myself right now, and disturbing as well. All right, coming up next, we mentioned an important Supreme Court case here that they're going to hear as it relates to immigration here. When we come back, another one. Several California teachers, they're suing their union. They're forced to pay dues even though they're not in the union. Well, the highest court in the land will decide the case, and members of unions here and employers everywhere, trust me, are going to be watching closely.